Hiya Dave, just a quick recap on your most recent session around the chipping green. Main theme for the day or the evening was to shallow things out. We can see here from face on, top left, much better setup than you used to have. The ball's nowhere near as far back, the shaft's angled forward nowhere near as much, so we've got a nice soft club face, trying to utilise the bounce on the sole of the club. We've got a shaft sitting almost vertically, running up, a line will be running up between the two forearms, so really good position at that point. What we've got to try and do now is keep things shallow and then shift the plane to the left to ensure that the low point doesn't occur too far behind the golf ball. So what we should be seeing here is a takeaway that's slightly lower to the ground. I'll come to that in a little bit when we move across to the next screen. We're seeing a lot better movement through the ball, a softening of the arms, a utilisation of the bounce of the golf club. You can see on this shot the ground's very wet. There's still a little bit of a divot there coming up, so we want to try and reduce the amount of divot that you're taking. So still a little bit of a tendency occasionally to come in steep and expose the leading edge to the ground on the way through. Now, as we've already discussed, you can chip that way, but it's quite unforgiving, particularly when the ground's quite wet, as we've got at the moment, or when we've got a slightly troublesome lie. So we're going to try and use the bounce of the golf club to generate a little bit more spin as well. We talked about how that action generates more spin. One of the criticisms I would have is as you come through, you tend to shift the plane to the left by unwinding the shoulders a little bit too much. And I'd like to see you soften the arms more. Feel like that butt of the club is closer to you as you come through the golf ball. That aside, far better action than what we had several months ago when we started working on your short game. So well done in that respect. I'll just take that back to setup. Good image for you to have there in regards to your setup. So onto the swing. You can see here, and it's a theme with your chipping and your pitching. We were talking a little bit later about the pitching and having the trouble or having difficulty getting the club to come out of the ground after impact, deep divots, a lot of shots maybe pulled to the left, struggling to control distance. And you can see there on both the chipping and the pitching, the club gets above plane a little bit too quick, very much out in front of you, coming into the hitting area. In regards to the chipping, with the club that much out in front of you, the completion of your backstroke, you've got two options really. You can either keep the club on that plane and come in steep, or you try and shallow that plane out, drop it under, and run the risk of bottoming out too far behind the golf ball. So really a simple change that we suggested was that just keep the club lower to the ground on the way back. Keeping the club lower to the ground on the way back gets the club to work a little bit more or much more inside. You can see that that club is going to be discouraged from digging as much in the ground. We've now got to make sure that we shift the plane to the left to encourage a low point that's out in front of the ball. You can see that he didn't even take a blade of grass on that one, considering how wet that ground is. Very shallow coming into that one. Good work. A little bit steeper on that one. So all in all, this one here is not a bad chipping action, but this one's a greatly improved one. Set to get some real spin on the shots as well at that point. In regards to the pitching, keeping the club lower to the ground produces an angle of attack, certainly a delivery position, should I say, that's more in line. The third accumulator that hasn't released quite as much, so that's going to enable you to keep a loft on the club. And the shallower angle of descent just makes it easier to bring the club out of the ground. If you look at that divot compared to that divot, I don't know if this is going to stand out when I magnify it. That's the divot that you can just make out there with the shallower takeaway. This is the divot with the steep takeaway. So less up and down producing a shallower angle of attack and improving your ability to bring the club out of its descent. Good luck with it, and look forward to working with you again on your putting early next week. Well done.